In the previous videos, we talked about the importance of directing our edge loops with poles, and also about how we should use quads as a rule of thumb when subdivision surface modeling. So how do we do both at the same time? Well, one of the techniques is to use what's called an all-quad junction. I'm sure there are lots of them out there, but there are three main ones that I want you to look out for. First, we have a 1 to 3 junction, where a single edge is coming in through the top, and on the bottom we're outputting 3 loops. So it's good from transitioning from areas of high density to areas of low density. Same thing over here, where we have, instead of a 1 to 3, we have a 2 to 4. So in case you have an even number of edge loops that you're working with instead of an odd number, then you can also, again, transition from areas of high density to areas of low density. And lastly, this one on the right, instead of making new loops that go from top to bottom, creates a loop that takes a corner and can surround a detail. So let's take a look at how to create these and how they're used. So I'll add a plane, Shift A, Mesh, and Plane. I'll drag it down on the Y-axis, tab into Edit Mode, right-click, and Subdivide. And let's just subdivide it a bunch so we have a lot of area to work with. And first, let's create this junction that goes from 1 to 3 and has a diamond shape in the middle. The first thing to know is that you can make any of these with the knife tool if you need to. So let's say you have an area with an n-gon. I'll just take all of these faces here and hit F to make a single face from them. And let's say you had a couple extra edge loops coming in here. Well, the way you'd connect these is you'd hit K to bring up your knife tool, and just simply make a triangle like so. I'll hit Enter to confirm, and then drag this vertex to the other side, making that a diamond. And then I'll just connect these bottom vertices back together with J. But in other situations, you might have a single edge loop and you want to turn it into 3, and for that you can take some set of edges and just hit Ctrl B to bevel. Make sure you scroll up once on the mouse wheel so you have one edge right in the middle there and one on either side. And then we just have to do a little bit of cleanup. I'll go to Vertex Select Mode. I'll pull this middle vertex out a little bit to make that diamond shape. And then I'll take the tip of the diamond, Shift select the vertex that's next to it, hit M, and choose Merge at Last. Then all we need to do is take both of these triangles and hit F to make a single face from them. Now we have 2 edge loops that take a corner, as well as an area of low detail transitioning to an area of higher detail. If we have a subdivision surface modifier on these, I'll go ahead and go to Object Mode and just hit Ctrl 2. And let's turn off Optimal Display. And maybe let's even go up one, just so we can really see the resulting density. We can see that we might want to spread out our edges just a little bit more to give these more breathing room. So just try to create less pinching by doing this. And of course, the way that you massage your vertices is highly dependent on what the object is that you're trying to create. So there's not going to be any one-size-fits-all solution, but you might want to go in and smoothly transition things a little bit more, just so that you can avoid some pinching. Or at least make the pinching less obvious. Now the 2 to 4 is also pretty easy to make. We can make it with the knife tool, or we can make it with the inset tool. Just hit K to bring up the knife tool. And let's make a little box inside of the area we want to transition. Right click to make a new cut and connect the corners. Enter to confirm, and we already have our quads here. We just might want to space things out a little bit better. So again, I'll turn off optimal display so we can see what our distribution looks like. And I'll just spread these out a little bit more. If you notice that that cut looked a lot like an inset, well, that's because we can do the exact same thing with an inset. I can just take any set of faces, just like so, hit I to inset, and then as long as boundary is off, then any edge that's not connected to anything else won't get inset, and we have that 2 to 4 transition, where we have 2 edge loops coming in and 4 coming out. Now, we can run as many edge loops as we want through this, and it's exactly the same. So we can also do that with whole sets of areas, high to inset, just like so. And now we have a loop that can surround a detail, as well as we now have more vertices on the left to work with than the right. Just note that since we put 2 of these right next to each other, we now have an uneven pull. That's definitely going to pinch this and pull it left. And if we turn on our subdivision surface modifier and turn on optimal display, that's exactly what's happening. So that may or may not be okay, depending on what object you're creating. It's just something to be aware of. All of these junctions create poles, and that's exactly what's allowing us to direct the edge loops. But as a result, we also have the potential for pinching and stretching. The last one was just a corner, which is exactly the same thing as these on the left, where we just select some faces here and hit I to inset. But instead of looping all the way around, we just have one single corner. So this may all seem very abstract, but let me show you an example of how these are put into practice. If you enable the dog collection, you'll see these quad junctions used all over the place. Most notably, I've used 2 here on the back to reduce the amount of edges coming from the head and the shoulders to the back. If I tap into edit mode, you can see that I have a lot of loops that are needed to define the head and the ears. But if I were to allow those to run all the way down to the back and through the tail, then the tail would get very pinched because we'd have a lot more vertices on the top than I would on the sides, and it would just end up looking very boxy and not round. So I needed to reduce the amount of edges between the head and the back. Well, I used 2 of the same junctions, one right here, where you can see we have a 2 to 4 junction with a loop running right in between it, and the same thing over here. It's just slightly more complicated because it's connected to the sides there, but it's the same idea. We're just transitioning from 4 loops up here to 2 loops back here. And that's what's allowing us to keep the hindquarters nice and simple. I'm doing the exact same thing here on the front, where I have a lot of loops that are needed to define the mouth, but if I let those run down and through the body, it would create a lot of pinching because those loops would be way too close together. So I used one of those junctions to just loop this in back around itself. And you can spot those same patterns anywhere where these loops take a turn. Over here on the nose, I have a single edge loop that runs around the front, but I need more detail on the top of the nose, so that transitions into 3 edge loops running along the top, using that diamond junction that we talked about first. So these are really, really useful for adding or removing detail from areas. I realize we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here, as we haven't even done too much subdivision surface modeling practice. So if you're completely new to modeling, I don't want you to worry too much about this, but I do want you to be aware of these patterns and just kind of notice them, because they're going to pop up naturally as you're modeling, whether you intend to create them or not. And then when you progress to a more intermediate level, you'll be able to use these intentionally in really powerful ways. For now, I just want you to get used to seeing these patterns and notice how, even if they look simple here, when they're used effectively, are doing a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to making complex shapes.